A week before my sister's art show, she texted, "Don't bring your husband and daughter. The curator's coming and we don't want any scenes." So I stood up for my family's right to be treated with dignity and turned her big night into a very public lesson. I stood in the middle of our kitchen, still in my scrubs, twirling the exhibit invitation between my fingers like a kid with a love note. It was glossy, all deep blues and gold trim, with my sister Clara's name front and center, Clara Delaney Reflections, a tribute to our mother. Just reading those words gave me chills. My name's Rachel. I'm 39, a nurse at a pediatric hospital in Hartford, Connecticut, married to Drew for 11 years. Our daughter Phoebe just turned 7 and has more spark than any child I've ever met. Life's been not perfect but solid, and this exhibit, it felt like a chance to celebrate something meaningful. Our mom had been gone 5 years now, and this would be Clara's first public show dedicated to her work and memory. "Mom, do you think Aunt Clara will like the collage?" Phoebe asked, hopping up onto a bar stool with purple marker on her chin. She'd been working on a surprise gift for 2 days straight, cutting up magazine pieces, watercoloring little skies, even gluing a photo of her and Clara from our last Christmas together in a popsicle stick frame. I honestly had to stop myself from tearing up every time I looked at it. "She's going to love it," I said, kissing the top of her head. "It's beautiful, and it came from your heart. That matters more than anything." Across the kitchen, Drew was slicing apples and packing Phoebe's lunch. "Don't forget to bring that little stand for it," he said. "She'll want to display it." Phoebe beamed. "Do you think they'll put it next to the big paintings?" I smiled. "Maybe. I bet Aunt Clara will give it a special spot." The truth was I believed that, or I wanted to. Things between me and Clara had their ups and downs over the years, but ever since our mom died we'd been trying harder. Supporting her art, showing up to her studio openings, donating what we could. Clara had talent, true talent, and she said this show was her biggest one yet. I was proud of her. Dad even got excited about it, which was rare. He offered to help hang lights, said he'd write the program note. We hadn't done anything together like this since Mom's funeral. "I think it's gonna be good," Drew said, wrapping his arm around me from behind. "Actually good." "I know," I whispered, holding his hand. "It feels like everything's lining up for once." We stood there in the kitchen, Phoebe still cutting paper stars, Drew humming to himself and me soaking it all in. For the first time in a long while, I felt like something beautiful was coming. A moment we'd all look back on and say, yeah, that was special. I had no idea how wrong I was. It was a Tuesday night 3 days before the exhibit when I got the text. I was halfway through folding a load of towels while Phoebe drew at the kitchen table, and Drew was in the living room catching up on work emails. The ping was sharp, a little too loud in the quiet hum of our evening. "Clara, hey, heads up. I've decided it's best if Drew and Phoebe don't come to the show. It's not a kid-friendly space and I really don't want the event ruined by noise or distractions. Hope you understand." I stared at the screen. "Read it twice, 3 times. I felt the heat in my chest before I even realized I'd stood up. "What's wrong?" Drew called out, noticing my sudden stillness. I didn't answer him. Not right away. I walked into the hallway, phone still in my hand like it might burn through my fingers. I pressed the call button, straight to voicemail. I tried again, same result. Texted back, "Me, Clara, are you serious right now? Phoebe made something for you. You know how excited she's been. What is this?" No response. I stared down the hallway like she might magically appear and explain herself. Nothing. Just the low hum of Drew's laptop and Phoebe softly humming as she glued a cotton ball to her collage. I walked back into the kitchen and sat down across from my daughter, watching her little fingers press sparkles onto the edge of her project. She looked up at me, smiling. "Do you think Aunt Clara will cry when she sees it?" she asked. I swallowed hard. I think she might. I didn't tell Drew right away. I couldn't. Not with Phoebe sitting there so hopeful, so proud. I waited until she went to bed. We stood in the living room, lights dim, and I showed him the text. He read it in silence. "She said ruined," he said finally. "Like we'd ruin her event." I nodded, my throat tight. He shook his head slowly. "She's not even trying to hide it. She thinks we're beneath her." It wasn't just about the show anymore. It was what that message meant. That my daughter, sweet, eager Phoebe, was too messy for her perfect crowd. That Drew, my husband, the man who helped build those gallery walls last month when she was short on help, was too ordinary to be seen at her side. I called Dad. Went to voicemail. He texted back an hour later. "Let's not stir up drama before the event. It's Clara's big night." That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a miscommunication or an accidental snub. This was intentional. A quiet little perch. We didn't fit her curated aesthetic. Not me, not my husband, and certainly not our daughter. I sat on the edge of Phoebe's bed that night while she slept, gently brushing her hair off her forehead. I thought of that collage she made, the one she called her memory rainbow. She thought it would hang next to the paintings. I'd never felt more humiliated or more angry. By Thursday afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. The show was the next day. The invitations had gone out. The the gallery was prepped, and I'd spent 2 nights listening to my daughter ask which shoes to wear and what snacks Aunt Clara might have. I couldn't lie to her. Not one more second. After dropping Phoebe at school, I drove straight to the gallery. It was quiet when I got there. Just the hum of a ladder being adjusted and my father's low voice coming from inside. I walked in and found them both near the back wall. Clara was on a step stool taping name cards under her paintings. Dad was fiddling with a light track. They looked up, surprised, not happy, just surprised. Rachel, Clara said, I didn't expect. No, you didn't. And clearly you didn't expect a lot of things, including me showing up after that garbage you texted. She blinked. Dad stepped back and rubbed the back of his neck. Girls, maybe this isn't. No, Dad, I snapped. You don't get to girls us right now. Clara stepped down, smoothing her shirt like she needed to compose herself. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Cut the crap, I said. You told me my daughter and my husband would ruin your night. You called Phoebe a distraction. Do you even hear yourself? Her jaw tightened. This is a professional event. It's not meant for kids and Drew. Drew just doesn't understand the space. He asked me last time if one of my sculptures was a coat rack. I stared at her. That's your reason? Because he doesn't know the difference between abstract form and furniture? Do you know what he does know? How to install your lighting when you couldn't afford a crew. How to haul your supplies to shows. How to encourage your niece to love art because you told her she had talent. Dad cleared his throat. Let's not blow this up. No, I shot back. Because I've sat quietly for years while you both tiptoed around Clara's moods and her genius in her creative space. But this is too far. Clara crossed her arms. I'm allowed to set boundaries. It's my event. You're allowed to set boundaries, Dad said carefully. But there's a difference between boundaries and insults. Clara turned to him, eyes narrowing. You're taking her side? He sighed. For a second, he looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. I've taken your side for a long time, Clara, he said. When you screamed at the caterer Mom hired for your grad party. When you told Rachel she had no style at Mom's memorial. When you borrowed money and never paid it back. I didn't say anything then. I should have. Clara looked stunned. I stayed quiet because your mother asked me to keep the peace. But she's gone now. And if you think I'm going to stand here while you exile your niece because you're afraid of glitter, glue, and emotion, you're wrong. She tried to speak. He raised a hand. I won't be at the opening unless Phoebe and Drew are welcome, he said, voice steady. And if that's not acceptable to you, then maybe you're not the one honoring your mother. Clara looked at me, then at him, furious and rattled. Fine, do what you want. I nodded slowly. We will. I didn't wait for anything else. I walked out. Dad followed. Neither of us said a word until we got to the parking lot. She's not going to change, he finally muttered. No, I said. But I have. That night, after Phoebe went to bed, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine and stared at the collage she made, now folded carefully into a manila envelope. Never delivered. Drew came in quietly and sat next to me. You want to talk about it? I nodded. She's not backing down. Dad tried, but she's dug in. It's like she's decided we're an embarrassment. Drew exhaled, rubbing his temples. So we're not going? I looked at him. We're not going. But I'm not done. He turned toward me. What does that mean? I grabbed my laptop and opened a spreadsheet, one I hadn't looked at in months. It listed every wire transfer, every Venmo note, every check I'd written to Clara over the years. Remember when she couldn't afford the studio rent in Hamden? I said. I covered 4 months. Drew's brow furrowed. Yeah. And when she maxed out her card buying materials for that artist's residency in Maine. I paid that off. I clicked to the next tab. I gave her $1,000 for the custom frames she insisted on using for this exhibit. And Dad said he chipped in, but it was me who paid for the lighting rig, through the hospital's vendor. Discounted rate. She never even asked what it cost. He whistled under his breath. How much are we talking about total? I didn't answer right away. I scrolled down to the bottom of the sheet. Just under 12 grand in the last 4 years. He blinked. Jesus. I nodded. I've got receipts, emails, bank records. The gallery is half hers and half crowdfunded through favors and friends she's burned. He looked at me carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, she wants to play this like a professional showcase? Then let's make it one. Every single thing I paid for, I'm reclaiming it. He raised an eyebrow. Like, legally? I still have the contract from the hospital audit, I said. Remember when we hired that private security company to remove expired tech from inventory? I kept their contact info. They do repossessions. Rachel, she made this about image. Fine. Let's show her what happens when the unsophisticated people she dismissed take their support away. You want to do this during the exhibit? I stared at him. During the opening, he leaned back. That's bold. It's necessary, I said. She made this public. I'm giving her a public answer. We sat there in silence for a moment. Then Drew chuckled, shaking his head. You know, I was ready to just let it go. So was I said. Until I realized Phoebe's collage was going to end up in a drawer. Hidden. Like her love was something to be ashamed of. He reached over and squeezed my hand. Okay, let's do it. I pulled up the email draft to the security firm and typed 2 words. Confirm availability. The gallery was packed. I could see people through the wide front windows as I pulled up, well-dressed, wine glasses in hand, small clusters admiring the art and murmuring politely. I recognized a few local critics, 2 donors Clara had name-dropped, and even the arts editor from the regional paper. The night was unfolding exactly how she'd imagined it, until we opened the doors. I walked in first, wearing all black. Not dramatic, just deliberate. Behind me came two movers in polos marked Private Logistics Group, flanked by a tall woman in a blazer who looked like she'd just stepped out of a legal drama. Her name was Sheila, and she'd been remarkably thorough over the past 48 hours. In my hand was a padded file folder with every receipt, contract, and email trail needed to validate ownership. And just as planned, Drew reached over to the stereo and unplugged the ambient playlist mid-song. The gallery fell silent. Clara turned around from her spot near the podium. Her eyes widened as she saw the movers stepping around the cocktail table. "What are you doing?" she said, voice rising. I walked forward, my heels echoing on the polished floor. "Don't worry, we'll be quick." She moved toward me. "Rachel, this is not the time. This is my opening." "No," I said calmly. "This was our opening. You just forgot who built the foundation." She looked at Sheila, then the movers as one of them began unscrewing the clamp lights above the center wall. "Stop them. You can't just take things." Sheila stepped forward, handing her a document. "Actually, we can. Ms. Delaney, as per this itemized agreement and the financial records provided, the lighting rig, support frames, and select display panels are legally owned by Mrs. Rachel Bennett. You are currently in unauthorized possession." Gasps rippled across the room. A man near the bar whispered something to his date. One of the donors stared open-mouthed. Clara's face flushed bright red. "You've lost your mind," she hissed. "You are humiliating yourself." I smiled. "Am I? Because I remember being told my husband and daughter would ruin your perfect evening, that they didn't fit the vibe." And then I pulled out my phone. I opened the text. The one that read, "I don't want the event ruined by children or unsophisticated behavior. Hope you understand." I read it out loud. The room went dead quiet. A woman near the back muttered, "Wow." Another shook her head. "I paid for these walls," I said, voice steady. "I funded the lights you used to spotlight your genius. I paid for the rigging holding up your tribute to Mom. And you decided my family wasn't worthy of the room." Clara's voice trembled. "This is vindictive." "No," I said. "This is honest. The honesty you never had the decency to show us in person." From the corner of the gallery, Dad stepped forward. He hadn't moved until now. He looked at Clara, his own daughter, with a gaze that felt heavier than anything I'd said. "I warned you," he said quietly. "You wanted to be the star. Now everyone gets to see what the spotlight reveals." She turned to him. "You're siding with her?" "I'm siding with the truth." Behind us, movers rolled out a crate with two of the adjustable panels, both marked with masking tape on the back, labeled loaned. Another worker removed the pedestal where Phoebe's collage had once been planned to sit, before it was deemed too childish. Sheila turned to me. "Would you like to continue or wait outside?" "We're done," I said. I walked out into the night, the soft clink of glass and murmurs trailing behind me. The opening was still happening, but now the crowd wasn't looking at the paintings. They were watching Clara try to hold up a room that was already collapsing. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. I heard about the aftermath before I even made it home. The text started rolling in while Drew and I sat at a diner 2 blocks from the gallery, splitting a plate of pancakes at 9 at night. It was Phoebe's favorite place, and I needed to be somewhere that smelled like syrup, not paint thinner and old grudges. First was a message from my cousin Danielle. "Danielle, what just happened? People are leaving. Clara's crying." The guy from the Arts Council walked out. Then another from a mutual friend of Clara's, Jared. "She told everyone you were unstable and had always resented her." Then your dad stood up and left with his suitcase. No one knows what to say. I nearly dropped my fork. "She brought a suitcase?" Drew asked, wiping his mouth. "No," I said. "Dad did." It all clicked into place. The 2 bags I'd noticed in his back seat when I arrived at the gallery, neatly packed with his old monogrammed initials. He was never planning to stay. By the time we got home, there were voicemails from my mother's second wife, his current partner of 10 years. They weren't pleasant. "Your father is out of his mind. Leaving me for you? After everything I've done for that family." The irony didn't escape me. She'd sided with Clara on the whole "no children at events" thing. She'd called Phoebe too noisy at last year's 4th of July barbecue. This woman once told my daughter to take her giggling elsewhere during dinner. I never said anything at the time. I just made sure we sat outside the next year. I called Dad. He answered after one ring. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" "I'm fine," he said. "I'm with a friend. Your guest room okay for a couple nights?" "Of course." Silence for a moment. Then, "I should have stopped her years ago." "Your mom would have." I let that settle. "What happened after we left?" I asked. "Well," he said with a dry chuckle, "Clara's partner Brandon? The investor? He ended things." "Wait, what?" "Yep. Said he couldn't be associated with someone who pulled stunts like that." Apparently he'd already had doubts and this was his tipping point. I leaned back on the couch, blinking at the ceiling. "And what about the gallery?" "Empty now," he said. "She closed it early. Cried. Through something. Someone filmed part of it. I don't think it'll go viral or anything, but the donors? They're not thrilled. And you?" He was quiet again. "I told your stepmother I'm filing. I'm done living in a house where kindness is a PR move." It hit me then just how deep this had gone for all of us. My dad, the same man who once told me, "Clara's just intense, not cruel," had finally reached his own breaking point. "She said it's your fault," he added casually. "Of course she did." "Well, if it is," he said, "then thank you." He showed up an hour later with those same 2 bags and a grocery store cheesecake Phoebe loved. He didn't say much. Just gave her a kiss on the head and handed her the box. Figured we could celebrate surviving tonight, he said. Phoebe lit up like it was Christmas. For the first time in years, he looked at her like she was the best thing in the room. And maybe she was. The next few weeks felt strangely light. Dad moved into the guest room without fuss. He unpacked his bags like a man who'd been waiting for permission. The first morning, he cooked eggs and toast without asking. Even packed Phoebe's lunch with a note that said, "Be brilliant, kiddo." She taped it to the inside of her school folder. "You don't have to do all this," I told him one night while we were washing dishes side by side. "I want to," he said, scrubbing a plate. "I missed a lot while you were growing up. I'd like to make up for it." He meant it. He walked Phoebe to the bus stop each morning with a travel mug and a goofy knit hat she made him wear. They played card games after dinner. He helped her build a shoebox diorama of the solar system and label Pluto with technically a dwarf planet, but we love him anyway. One night, I came home from a late shift and found them on the floor of the living room, carefully rebuilding Phoebe's memory rainbow. The same collage Clara never even looked at. He had flattened the wrinkles, backed it on cardstock, and they were gluing on new pieces together. "This one's a flower from Grandma's garden," Phoebe explained. "I drew it from memory." "And this one," Dad said, pointing to a tiny photo of Mom, "is the heart of it all." I had to step into the hallway for a moment to keep from crying. Something shifted in our house. Not all at once, but slowly, like someone opening the blinds a little wider each day. Drew noticed it too. "Your dad being here, it's like someone reinforced the walls," he said one night. "It's peaceful." And it was. There were no more hushed debates about Clara. No tension about what we owed to people who disrespected us. No walking on eggshells around polite cruelty. Instead, there was warmth, wholeness, real presence. One evening, Phoebe crawled into bed with me holding a stuffed bear and whispered, "I like when Grandpa reads to me. He makes the funny voices." I smiled into her hair. "I like it too." At dinner the next night, she asked suddenly, "Why doesn't Aunt Clara visit anymore?" The table went quiet. Drew glanced at me, but I answered calmly. "Sometimes," I said, "people make choices that hurt others. And when that happens, we have to protect our hearts." Phoebe nodded, thoughtful. Then she looked at Dad. "I'm glad you live here now." He smiled gently, eyes a little glassy. "Me too, kiddo. You're the best part of this family." That night, we played Uno until bedtime. Phoebe won 2 rounds and danced around the kitchen in victory. Dad made popcorn for no reason at all. And for the first time in years, I felt steady. Like we were building something new, not just from the pieces Clara broke, but from something stronger. Love that didn't have to be earned. Respect that didn't need conditions. Family exactly as it should be. It started with a missed call from an unknown number, then another, then a text that made my stomach twist. "Clara, can we talk? Please, it's urgent." I didn't respond. 3 days later, she showed up at the hospital during my lunch break. I spotted her through the glass doors of the staff lounge, hair a mess, sunglasses too big, like she was trying to hide in plain sight. I wanted to walk the other way, but she saw me. "Rachel," she said, rushing forward. "Please, just 2 minutes." I held the door but didn't invite her in. "What do you want?" She took off her sunglasses, eyes red and puffy. "I'm being evicted. I lost the studio. Brandon's gone. The gallery is everything fell apart after that night." I stayed silent. She kept talking. "I've tried everything. I maxed out my cards. I sold 2 pieces to a collector in Rhode Island, but it's not enough. I can't even cover rent this month. I need a little help. Please, just a loan." I stared at her. "You know Phoebe cried when she realized you didn't want her at the show?" Clara winced. "I was trying to make it professional. I didn't mean." "Don't," I cut in. "Don't rewrite it now. You didn't just exclude her. You called her a distraction. You called Drew unsophisticated. I was stressed. You were cruel." She looked down, swallowing hard. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I messed up. I miss you. I miss Dad. I didn't mean to hurt you." "Funny," I said. "No one mentioned Phoebe and all that. You miss us, but not once have you asked how she felt. Not once did you say her name." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I shook my head. "You don't want forgiveness. You want relief. That's not the same thing." Tears welled in her eyes. "I have nowhere else to go." "You made sure of that," I said. "You scorched the ground behind you and now you're surprised nothing's growing." "Rachel, please." "No." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said it, steady and final. "No." She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "I hope you figure things out," I added. "But not at our expense. Not again." I turned and walked away, my heart pounding. By the time I got back to the unit, my hands were shaking. I sat down, took a deep breath, and reminded myself that boundaries aren't cruelty. They're survival. That night, I didn't tell Phoebe about the visit. I read her a bedtime story instead, while Dad cleaned up the kitchen and Drew helped with her math worksheet. And when I finally lay down in bed, I stared at the ceiling and waited for some kind of victory to rise up in me. It didn't. Only silence. Only peace. 3 months passed. Clara didn't call again. Not once. Neither did her friends or that smug partner of hers. The gallery had shuttered quietly, like a candle going out in an empty room. I didn't chase the silence. I let it stay. Life, meanwhile, didn't just continue, it bloomed. Phoebe thrived with Grandpa in the house. They made up secret handshakes, grew cherry tomatoes in pots on the patio, and built an elaborate cardboard train station in the garage. Every Thursday night was invent dinner, which meant peanut butter on waffles and cucumber slices shaped like stars. She'd never laughed so freely. And I felt lighter. Not all the time. Not in some storybook, everything is perfect way, but in a real settled way. Like my shoulders weren't carrying 3 generations of unspoken tension anymore. One Saturday morning, I found Phoebe in the sunroom, sitting cross-legged with a glue stick and a stack of old family photos. "What are you working on, sweetheart?" I asked. She looked up, smiling. "I'm making a family book, just for us." She held up a page, a picture of her, Drew, me, and Dad at her last soccer game. Her handwriting underneath spelled out, "My favorite people." My heart twisted. She flipped to the next page and paused. It was a photo of her and Clara from years ago. Clara had her arm around her, both of them smiling. She studied it for a long time. "Mom," she said finally, "how come Aunt Clara doesn't come over anymore?" I sat beside her, brushing a curl off her forehead. "That's a good question." I thought for a second, then said gently, "Sometimes people make choices that hurt others. And when that happens, we have to protect the people we love, even if it means letting some folks go." She nodded slowly, not sad, just thinking. "But I still love her," she said. "I know," I replied. "I do too. And loving someone doesn't mean you let them keep hurting you." She folded the photo carefully and tucked it in the back of the scrapbook. "I'll keep it in a pocket, just in case she's nice again someday." That night, we played board games in our pajamas. Drew cheated at charades in the most obvious way. Dad burned the popcorn and blamed the microwave. We laughed until our cheeks hurt, and I realized as Phoebe snuggled against me on the couch, her feet in my lap and her hand in mine, that we hadn't lost a family. We just finally built the right one. Not perfect, but honest. Not curated, but real.